I'm assuming that was for me, right? You're like, whoever that guy is. Hey, we're glad to be here tonight. Thanks for having both of us. Let me kind of introduce myself so that it kind of makes sense of what we're doing. My name is Jack, and I'm actually the chaplain for the Angels. Yeah. So I've gotten to know Albert for many, many years, and we have eaten together. We've laughed. We probably have cried. He's cried, not me. And we've golfed, and I've beat him senseless on the golf course. And but in all seriousness, man, we've been doing life together with Jesus for many years, and we're really excited to be here. And so I'm going to be kind of the guy asking him the questions and kind of making it all make sense to all of you. And before we kind of get there, I want to start off with this reality. Albert did not end up here today overnight. He's been on a journey, right? And just like you in your life, you're on a journey too, and he's on a journey, and I've been walking part of this journey with him. And so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about his journey and kind of how he got here and what his relationship with the Lord looks like. And so just a little way of introduction. I think y'all kind of know who he is. He's like one of the best baseball players ever, right? Yeah. And I'm actually not making that up. The statistics say that more men have walked on the moon than what you've accomplished in baseball. I mean, that's how elite he is. And so I tell people, like, he's the Babe Ruth of our era, you know? But with that being said, Albert's life is more, are you listening to this? Albert's life is more than baseball. And your life is more than your job, and your life is more than your friends and your school. You're all here for a purpose and a reason. And Albert has had a great, great baseball career. He's got 2 World Series rings. He's won the Hank Aaron Award, the MVP multiple times, the batting title multiple times. You're climbing the charts for home runs hit. You know, let's hope you can get to that point, but, you know, God willing. And he's accomplished so much on the field. But what I want to do is help us understand tonight that Albert's life is more than baseball. And so what I want to do with you, Albert, we'll get into this in a second, is I want to ask you about your life in 3 areas. All right? So we're going to cover his journey in 3 areas. All right? So the first one I kind of want to talk about is really kind of your childhood. We know that you were born in the Dominican. And so can you speak to what it was like kind of growing up in the Dominican?
Well, does anybody know where the Dominican Republic is? Small island in the Caribbean. I grew up just like, every little boy dream. Obviously, I had a rough childhood. You know, my mom and dad divorced at a young age. So at that time, I was raised by my grandma and my dad and some family members, in the DR. Moving from places to places every year, pretty much every year, every other years. Because some of them were immigrating into the United States. So me and my dad, we were the last one that came to the United States at the age of 16. But early in my career and my young childhood, all I wanted to do is just go to school, play baseball, and just become somebody, like just become this professional athlete that I wanted to be. A little story, actually, before I chose baseball, my dad, I think I was 4 or 5 years old, he took me to this place where they have all sport. They have boxing, baseball, basketball. And I remember my first pick, it was boxing. And the first day that I even went to the training, and, we were just working out, and then obviously, they put my glove together with another kid, and this kid just knocked me out. I mean, knocked me out straight down. So I remember walking to my dad crying, and I was like, I can't believe, this kid's like, he was about maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I was like 5 or 6, and, I can see that the experience that he has, and that was my first time, putting the glove, and thank God that happened, because then I choose the right sport. So then I choose baseball, and, but growing up, it was rough, like I say, a third world country, really poor, and God gave me the opportunity to come to the United States at the age of 16, and then where I came to be with my family in Kansas City.
So, it kind of sounds like, in a lot of ways, your childhood could be like ours in a lot of ways. There were struggles. It didn't come easy for you. And you said your mom and dad divorced when you were young, and you lived with multiple family members. And so, in a lot of ways, I think a lot of us have struggles in our own lives. And we might look at Albert or somebody that you admire outside of baseball and think like, oh, they got it together. Man, their life is so perfect. I wish I could have their life. But when you start to hear the backstory of their life, you begin to really realize that everybody has issues. And we all struggle, right? And we all have a story, and we all have a journey. And so when you came to the U.S. as a child, you came with your dad. What were like some of the struggles that you experienced here? Because you're, like you said, you're coming from a different country. You're coming here to the United States. What was that like for you getting here?
Well, it's really tough. Remember, 16 years old, you kind of pretty much get, comfortable in your own culture down in the DR with your friend and family. Now you're moving to, to the United States, which at that time, for me, like everybody that was coming to New York City, I thought that was the United States. Like everybody, like until I find out, like the United States is bigger than just New York City, So, but, young child, I didn't know anything. So all my friends are like, man, New York is awesome. New York is awesome. And for me, it was like, wow, that's great. So, it was tough with the language. It was tough, to get used to around with the culture. But one thing that I can say I'm thankful is that I was, always with my family, So if I was around my family, I was really comfortable. I was around my dad, I was around my grandma, aunts, uncles, so I had their support. So I knew at the end it was for the best for me and my dad and everybody in my family. So it was really hard. Those were the challenge, going to school and had to have my cousin help me out with the language and in class. But one thing that I know that when I put my mind in something, I go at it. And I told myself, you know what, I need to learn the language, I need to communicate, and, and in 3 months and 4 months, I think, 3 or 4 months, like I picked the language, I started communicating, and it started getting better in this way. And it was tough because I came like around September of 1996, I believe, if I remember right. So right away it started like snowing in the Midwest. So, I never saw snow. So, and then, I don't know, but everybody that sees snow for the first time, the first thing they do, they go outside, be outside, and boom, bust down, like fell down. So that's happened with me. And, but it was something that I got used to. And like I said, being around the family and cousin and friends and, meeting friends in school. And, one of my, especially in high school, it was really tough. But one of my good friends right now, Chris Franca, they're still my friend too now. He was one of the guys too that helped me out a lot, especially in baseball.
Okay. You brought up a really good point that I want to talk about for a minute, and that is that you left one culture and you came to a new culture. And part of that struggle, I would imagine, is trying to find your identity in that culture and trying to fit in and understand that culture. And I think a lot of our students here today, they're living in a culture where they're inundated by social media and the Snapchatters that are here, right? How many Fortniters do we have here? Look at them all, right? So, look at, I sparked interest. So we have, all of you have this influence in your life, right? Social media, trying to fit in, trying to find your identity. You're trying to fit in the culture of teen years, and can't teen years be weird, right? Would you agree to that? Teen years are weird, right? Us parents, we know that because we went through them, believe it or not. We actually went through teen years. But the thing about it is when you got here, you had to really guard yourself from trying to fit into the culture. And like you said, spend time with your family. Why do you think it's dangerous for these kids here to try to identify themselves with social media and try to be something they're not? What's the danger of that, do you think?
Well, it's really dangerous, because you open yourself, to things that we shouldn't be looking, or especially my kids. I'm guilty with that. I see my kids sometime, and we sit in the dining room table, and I remember, when I was with my family having lunch or dinner, we were just sit down and joke and just tell a story of what happened in the game in high school and share a story. Right now I see sometime in dinner with my kids, and I'm like, they're in their iPad and the phone, and I'm like, I can't even get their attention, but my job, my wife's job is to make sure, hey, making sure that, hey, listen, this is the time that we need to spend as a family, and put those iPad, put those electronics away, and it's hard, I got 5 kids, and to be able to sit down with them and just have them all together in one room is tough, because one is in her, Sophia sometimes in her room, Bella's in the other room, AJ, he's playing golf, so whatever. But it's just, but that Fortnite game is crazy, because I even got addicted to it. But
I had no idea.
but I think sometimes you need to set you need to set some boundaries, and knowing that as a parent, you always look up for your kids. And one thing that I tell my kids is like, listen, we want the best for you. We want the best for you. We just we don't want to be a police officer, take what you see, what you do, and all that. But at the end of the day, you need to know. You see your mom, you see your dad, and they just want the best for you. So, but it's really hard. It's really hard. Something since your social media started, like 10 years ago, it's been going crazy. But you can use it for good things, but sometimes we just need to be careful.
Yeah. So let's move then that's your childhood years. Let's kind of move into these high school, college years. Did you grow up in a Christian home? What did that look like for you?
I did not, but I didn't grow up in church. I got friends at a young age inviting me, several times to church, and I just, but there were, at that time, I felt like I was early in my life, and now that I look back, I believe that I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready, because I remember then they used to tell me, oh, you can't wear this jean, you can't have this haircut and all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know if I want that. So at that time, I believe that I look back right now and say I wasn't ready at that time. So I didn't grow up going to church. Maybe step in a church maybe once or twice when I was down in the DR, and it was because my friends were forcing me to. But then I moved to the United States, where I met my beautiful wife, Deidre, and she's pretty much introduced me to the church.
So what I heard from you on that is you weren't attracted to the church because in your mind you thought it was all about rules and religion, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of a turnoff for you. So you mentioned your wife, and that was one of the things that attracted you. So kind of share this. So like your wife's the one that kind of led you to the Lord, right?
Definitely, she did. She took me to church, and going to church about the third week, I asked her, babe, what is it? By the way, at that time, I didn't know much English, so I had to use like a translator in Spanish, so that way I had it in my ear, And I asked her, baby, what is that? When the Pastor Jeff Adam in Kansas City Baptist Temple, he used to do the altar call. I was like, what is that, baby? And she kind of explained to me, the whole thing. She was like, well, I'm going to keep it simple for you so you can understand. There's a heaven and there's a hell. And I was like, well, I don't want to go to hell. I want to go to heaven. So 2 weeks into, we came back to church, and then, the service was almost over, and Pastor Adam, did the prayer and the altar call, and I just walked with my wife, and she was like, where are you going? And I just walked to the front, and I dedicate my life to the Lord, and since then, it just, it's